Go live then.
Sure.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Red Pill Cinema Part 2 of the thing that we did on Wednesday. Sorry, I had to go pick Lindsay up from her job right away because she wasn't feeling well, and she can't get home without me. So at least not
Yeah.
easily.
Okay.
But
Well,
we're here, and again, I have about 2 hours, but I think it'll be less stressful this time. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, at least we know what we're doing, right? We've already.
yeah, and we
Yeah.
got the shorts thing figured out too. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's a
it
big.
was like I had to do like some MacGyver shit, but we got a workaround.
So we got our shorts back.
Yeah, YouTube's been thwarted.
Yeah. YouTube
Yeah.
attempted to steal our shorts, but we got them back. We endeavored.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're doing today, and I'll do the things, is we're going back into the Film Industry Watch's article on misandry and media. And incidentally, this is not a new thing. I'll give Brian a link in our Discord to a rundown of how many times this has been pointed out in the last 75 years that media is extremely misandrist and that has an overtly negative portrayal of men. But yeah, so the Industry Watch has once again said, "Oh wow," or noticed that media is really misandrist and doesn't seem to really show men in a positive light. And once again, the conclusion is, but don't get angry about it, guys, because that would be bad. So anyway, we'll go through that article and then we will finish off our discussion of Bryrony Claire's war on birth control, alleged war on birth control. So
or her coverage of the way that women are being turned into chattel again.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Way that women are being turned into chattel again by Bryrony Claire. Yeah, so those are the things that we're going to be covering. If you want to send a message at any point throughout the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And it's the very best way for you to send us a tip and the very best way for you to send us your messages because we know where they go and they don't go through YouTube's comment minefield. Take that as you will. All right, let's get going, Brian.
All right. So I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Please smash that like button. It helps us reach more people, especially while we're live. So if you guys could, please hit like on the stream. Okay. So you want to get back into the article or do you want to go to Bryrony Claire's thing?
Let's get back into the article. Like we stopped at toxic masculinity. Let's go back into toxic masculinity.
Yeah, let's get into some toxic masculinity. So, all right. So this article, for people who didn't see it before, it is a website called filmindustrywatch.org, and someone actually wrote an article saying, you know what? I think we're shitting on men too much lately. and they're pointing out some films, and they're basically saying, look, it's also making bad art. Which it is objectively. But yes. What?
Actually, you know what? I just found that message. And I will send you the link on Discord. By the way, guys, if you want to join us on Discord and have these kinds of conversations and be part of a community that is not insane, you can go to badgernation.online and get a Discord account and join us and have conversations with people who aren't insane. I'm just going to say it. The rest of the world, the rest of y'all, it's like from Hitchhiker. Have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? There's this guy who has his inside of his house on the outside. So when you go into his house, it's like the outside of his house, but the inside is on the outside. And he says that's because the rest of the world is the insane asylum. That's sort of where we're at. But anyway, if you want to join us, badgernation.online, help us build a community of sanity. And I sent you the link so we can just briefly look at how long this has been a problem or this has been pointed out.
Yeah. You want me to read this stuff in the link then?
Yeah, sure. Give us.
So one of our users. Yeah, one of our users in Movies and Television, which is one of the millions of chat rooms we have, Basically, our Discord is a TARDIS. You go in and it's so much bigger on the inside. So, number one, he says men have criticized media representation of male characters for decades, proving that many current issues are longstanding. Which, yes, um, and he says number one, Daddy with a Difference, 1954 Time Magazine. In television's stable of 35 home life comedies, it is a rare show that treats father as anything more than the mouse of the house, a bumbling, well-meaning idiot who is putty in the hands of his wife and family. Number two, Ripped Off Mozart, 1985 by Asa Barber, Playboy magazine. They're taking away our role models. In movies, books, and television shows, men are being trivialized. And the message is this: you guys are mostly dumb, frivolous, awkward, and mouse-like. And if you don't agree with that, you're sexist. Yeah. So, number three, Male Bashing, 1991 by Frederick Hayward, To Be a Man. By far, male bashing is the most popular topic in my current talk shows and interviews. The trend is particularly rampant in advertising. In a survey of 1,000 random advertisements, 100% of the jerks singled out in male-female relationships were male. Number four, Shining Time Station Interviews. Shining Time Station Interviews Rick Sigelkow, 2008 by Jay Grattan, Sodor Inland fan site. Tom Jackson played the straight man, Billy Two Feathers, to balance the antics between Schemer and Stacy. We also thought that he was a good role model for boys who really don't see that many grounded men on television. So many men on kids' TV are buffoons or bad guys, although I think that's changing.
Yeah,
No,
really. No, it got worse.
2008. I think it's starting to change. No, it's gotten
No,
worse.
it's gotten
All
worse.
right.
So we have this being pointed out in 1954, 1985.
Yeah, but I think it gets older than that. Like, do you remember the song "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better"?
Yeah.
Like that's how old this is. Anything you can do, I can do better is basically just feminist propaganda.
Well, actually, if you watch the movie, it's sort of tweaking the nose of that attitude. So I wouldn't call that one, but maybe Father Knows Best, ? Which was like a Victorian or a radio drama where it had some of these like maybe a little bit milder kind of tropes. But I think this really started to get a lot of traction in the 50s when Hollywood produced its radical new reimagining of the relationship between men and women in the form of the homemaker and provider homemaker relationship. Prior to that, women provided in the home. Men may have gone out to work, but women were providing foodstuffs, canned goods, all kinds, and also doing most of the like real labor of the home before it was taken over by automation. So, and the change there in Hollywood was to change society, American society from a productive society to a consumptive society, which underpinned its role as the world reserve currency. So this is something that has a long, like this is definitely started in the 50s because of that change in how we viewed men and women's roles. And as a result of Hollywood reimagining those roles. And then, it's just gotten more and more worse and worse and worse and worse over the years. It's always getting worse, guys. I don't know. I can only imagine what the next iteration of how we are going to disparage, minimize, and ostracize masculinity will be. I don't even know what could it possibly look like? Because at this point, we're not even just at mockery, we're at overt violence. So,
yeah,
which is interesting considering recent events. Okay, let's
all right, so now we're going to get into the section called Toxic Masculinity, from pop psychology to Hollywood gospel. Hardly pop psychology, actually. It's just bullshit, but okay. Central to this ideological shift is the rise of the concept of toxic masculinity. Coined in academic and therapeutic circles decades ago, the term entered the popular lexicon in the 2010s and has since become a catch-all in media and Hollywood for the stereotypical behaviors of men that are deemed destructive: aggression, sexual entitlement, emotional repression, violence, you name it. Feminists have adopted toxic masculinity as shorthand to characterize the misogynist, abusive, or emotionally stunted behaviors common in men. In public discourse, and often in these films, toxic masculinity doesn't refer to individual bad actors so much as it indicts an entire system of social conditioning. It's the idea that traditional norms of manhood, the old
No.
boys don't cry, might makes right, and sow your wild oats mentality, create a poison that spreads through men's psyches and
Okay,
by
we got to
extension hurts
stop.
women in society. I know. I just want to
Yeah.
finish the sentence at least.
Okay. No. 100% no. Feminist conjecture about how societies work is 100% wrong. It is worse than wrong. It is to the point, wrong is just, it doesn't have any predictive value. Worse than wrong is it has reverse predictive value. If you actually assume the opposite of what feminism would say to assume, generally that's more accurate to reality. So feminist framework is absolutely a joke. Okay. And furthermore, what they identify as so-called toxic masculinity, even if we set aside the large amount of domestic and sexual violence that women themselves are responsible for, the men who engage in these activities, the biggest causal factor this is new stuff coming out. The biggest causal factor is having been subject to multiple forms of abuse as a child. All right. So this isn't the behavior of men who are socialized. This is the behavior of men who have been abused, and not like it is a tiny minority of men who have been subject to multiple types of abuse that actually go on to do this kind of abusive behavior. It's like 4% of them, 4%. But this is the biggest causal factor identified, that boys who are hurt by their caregivers and the people that they should be able to trust go on to be aggressive, or more likely to go on to be aggressive. And again, this is a tiny minority of even those boys go on to be more aggressive, to be more violent, to engage in the behaviors that they have been subject to, right? Feminist theory or feminist conjecture is wrong. It is wrong about the source of these behaviors. It is wrong about the complicity of the rest of the world in developing these behaviors. It is just flat out wrong. And the fact that they control how we view ourselves as men and women is terrifying. You want to know why everything is going to shit? Okay, and I would even include I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying that the conservative attempt to correct this has lost so much ground, because we are now fighting over a basic function of a society, which is to police its borders. Right? We are fighting, that has become politicized. Under Obama, he deported way more than Trump ever deported. And yet this issue has become politicized when it is a simple function of a functioning society to do so, to protect its borders. That's like having skin, right? We are now arguing over whether or not societies have the right to have skin. That is losing a lot of ground, friends. And the reason why we're losing all this ground and keep losing this ground, and the issues regarding misandry in the media just keep getting worse, is because feminists define the relationship between men and women. That is at the heart of it. It is a systemic issue that they have claimed the most important definitional relationship in our society. And they define it and they pump it out into the media, and everything gets worse. We are a society at war with itself because of that. Okay, I will let you do a rejoinder to that, Brian.
I'm just gonna what?
Or do you want to reply to that? Do you want to say that I said anything wrong, or?
No, I mean, no, I no, I don't have an issue with any of that. Yeah, I mean, I mean, you know how I feel about toxic masculinity. It's non-science.
Yeah, it is
It's
non-science. It's
it's
not even
nonsense, non-science.
it's not even it is not even approaching science.
Right.
It's somebody pulled out something. It even isn't even approaching something that can be like nobody. Think about it. If you're a guy and people start talking about men oppressing women, just say, "Do you honestly believe that?"
Yeah.
Right? And people will just be like, what? They won't have an answer for it because it's against their own common sense. And they know it is. This lie perpetuates itself because nobody says, do you really believe that? Because the instant that people, men, women start saying, do you really believe that men oppress women? People are just like, it's like you will see the blue screen of death cross their eyes because they have no answer to that, because it just exposes the lack of common sense, the lack of rationality to it. Like, do you honestly believe that? Right? That's all you have to do, because they have no answer to it. Because this is a situation of the emperor has no clothes. We all have collectively agreed to believe this nonsense. And the only way that this nonsense maintains itself is our collective agreement to not question it at all, ever.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So toxic masculinity. Again, I'm glad that there is an attempt to critique it. I just think this person is like a little bit behind what's been going on, but I appreciate that they're at least trying to figure this out. So, let's see. Yeah, so let's go to the next paragraph. Hollywood's new narratives have embraced this concept with zeal. In film after film, the worst male characters are practically case studies in toxic masculinity. Domineering, violent, unable to empathize, and ultimately pathetic. Anyone want to say anything about that? I mean, yes, but then again, like there is one thing I wanted to add from before. There is no distinction between toxic masculinity and just plain old masculinity. It's all toxic. Like there's no point in adding the descriptor, because the way that it's treated is they take everything masculine and then they make it cartoonishly absurd, and then they call it normal and they say this is what men are, you know? So like men having an interest in women, for example, just liking women, you know, sexually or whatever it is, they always have to take it further to the point of being predatory, violent, rapey, etc. But they never present a guy who's just interested in a girl, like just appreciates attractive women. That's just an example. You know what I mean? Like if a man is competitive in fiction, and they're trying to put this toxic masculinity narrative, there are no healthy competitions. Everything is like hyper aggressive, hyper dominant, cartoonishly, you know, almost like homoerotic in a way. Like they'll try to suggest that, because that's another way that these people shame men, is they accuse them of secretly being gay, as though being gay is somehow bad. But it's not bad, because that's homophobic and they can't do that. But at the same time, they think you might be gay or closeted or something. So they try to suggest it with their media, the way they tell their stories. And it's basically, there is no such thing as normal, healthy masculinity in the world of our media. It's all bad. So there's no point in making the distinction, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. No, there isn't, because, and there's no point making the distinction. And again, this is emperor has no clothes situation. They don't want to admit to their statements that, no, we mean all masculinity is bad. But just, if you want to know that they mean all masculinity is bad, just ask them, what is positive masculinity? And that means traits and behaviors you associate with men and masculinity more than you associate with women and femininity, in the same way that you associate toxic traits with men and masculinity. So that's a complete stumper for them. The best they can do is to say, well, traditional notions of masculinity had these positive traits. And I said, well, do you? And the answer is, of course, no, because they think that associating those positive traits with men is misogyny, because you're not associating them with women. So they have absolutely no answer, no real answer to what is positive masculinity. So what they're saying when they say toxic masculinity is all masculinity. They think all masculinity is toxic, and not just stuff that we have associated with men, like competition, like stoicism and that kind of stuff. They also associate gender neutral ills like sexual violence and domestic violence with men, right? And then they associate it not with men who are abused, which is what the science says, and it's a minority of men who are abused, okay? What it actually is men who are abused plus genetic factors that lead to low impulse control, right? That is a tiny minority of all men. Okay? So even if you abuse like all men, most of them won't go on to abuse others. They'll just take it. Even as children, they'll just take it. Only the ones who also have impulse control problems will go on to abuse, and not even all of them. All right. So this is an extremely unlikely occurrence with very specific parameters in reality, and they attribute it to the relationship between men. They attribute it to male socialization. They attribute it to the boys' club. They attribute it to masculinity. That is absolute bullshit. 100% bullshit. And everybody knows it's bullshit in academia. Even I think the feminists know it's bullshit, but they keep doing it because they are pushing a particular version of the relationship between men and women that makes them money. And that's what this has always been about. Since changing the female role from homesteader to homemaker, consumptive consumer, from producer to consumer, since that moment, it has been about making money. And not just income, because this happened well before women went into the workforce. This happened when Hollywood constructed the homemaker. It has been about money since then. It has been about money, and that's all that it's about. That's it. They are destroying the relationship between men and women to make money and to control people. Because that's also
to guide the culture. There's like a
guide force really at this point.
Yeah, force the culture, but like it's to control people. That's what allegations of sexism are too. They're just ways to control people. That's what toxic masculinity as a concept is. It's designed to control male behavior. It's to make men feel like they need to act a different way so that they're not being toxic, because surprise, surprise, the last thing men want to do in general is harm women and be dangerous to them. So if women say this is toxic and I don't like it, men are going to be like, well, I'm going to try to change it. And at least that's what the hope is. But anyway, back to the article. The Barbie movie outright name checks patriarchy as Ken's newfound religion, lampooning its absurdity. Promising young woman all but uses the praise toxic masculinity in its premise. The lead character feigns helpless drunkenness precisely to expose men's ingrained predatory responses. And behind the scenes, this viewpoint has been validated by mainstream institutions. Yes, all this is true. And here we go. In 2018, we covered this. Like, this is all stuff that we've covered on this show when it happened. In 2018, the influential American Psychological Association released its first ever guidelines for therapists working with boys and men, and it pointedly declared that traditional masculinity is psychologically harmful. So they're not even saying toxic. They're calling it traditional masculinity. They've also called it hegemonic masculinity. That basically it's just masculinity though. Like it's just all masculine things, and even like Allison said, even non-gendered things that men do.
But also women do. Yeah,
they become associated. Yeah, that men and women do, but they become associated only with men, and and basically erased from women. So
yeah, exactly. They are become erased from women. The thing is that sorry guys, I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, they just associate these negative things with women. They basically They basically make men into scapegoats for everything negative in society. And they do it because this narrative makes money. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it also allows them to control people or justify control and justify more and more government overreach. Because if you basically say that the natural relationship, the most basic natural relationship in society is tainted beyond repair, that is the command narrative, the master narrative of government control. Is it? There's nothing that government can't justify controlling at that point, because that is every relationship. The relationship between men and women is the relationship between men and men, the relationship between women and women, the relationship between everybody and everybody. You control that, you got the master narrative, and you have given yourself the right to put your nose into everybody's business and control every transaction in society. All right. I'm good.
So what the whole thing about, well, let me finish this paragraph and then I'll say, okay, so the APA warned that socializing boys to be stoic, competitive, and aggressive leads to a host of problems, from mental illness to violence. In effect, the APA distilled toxic masculinity into an official stance. The time-honored traits of manhood, strength, stoicism, and dominance, were recast as risk factors or pathologies to be curbed. Yes, that's right. So like what I was thinking, as an example of like this kind of um way of using this language to control people. It's like magic incantations. You know, you call a man toxic, or you talk about toxic masculinity. You don't even have to accuse someone in particular of doing it to cause a reaction in them, because they're going to suddenly be wary of it. I mean, basically every male feminist is essentially trained by this word. That's why they're they can be so, like, aggressive against other men when it comes to protecting women, because that's like the way that it's been engineered. And I was thinking about puppies. So when puppies play, they, how dogs play, they use their mouth. That's like basically their primary way of playing, and they play bite. Like Jojo play bites me all the time when I want to play with him, and it's because he knows how much pressure to apply when he's playing, and he's been doing it since he was a puppy too. Because we used to do dog sitting, and we'd have other dogs over, and Jojo would play with all the other dogs, and so he's very good with dogs and people. But sometimes when puppies are learning, they might accidentally bite a little too hard on the other dog. And when they do, the other dog will give a yelp. And if it's not a psycho dog, that the one that's doing the biting, if it's like a well-socialized animal, it will immediately realize that it's hurt the other dog and change its behavior. It'll stop, or it'll check on him or whatever. And that reaction is the same kind of thing they're trying to get out of men. So it's like the whole, you're hurting me, and then men are supposed to immediately stop and say, "Oh my God, what do I do to stop this?" But they're making an appeal to that in men, while also claiming it doesn't exist in men because of toxic masculinity. So
Yep.
when you realize it is just a method of control, then you can like discern, like the difference between hurting someone in reality, and then you can like make amends for that, or you realize that they're manipulating you, and then you can go from there, basically be
Yep.
like, no, this is a control thing you're doing. So
Mm-hmm. And I remembered the thing that I wanted to point out. You notice how they're talking about traditional masculinity. And what's interesting is, again, if I say, "Hey, what do you recognize that's positive about masculinity?" Often they'll refer to traditional masculinity, but now traditional masculinity is in the sights as being the cause of men's mental health issues. So in other words, masculinity is maybe not a disease yet, but a precursor to a disease. It's kind of like smoking before getting lung cancer. It's a precursor behavior before disease occurs.
yep.
Oh, good Lord. Anyway.
All right. Back to the article. So critics have noted that this concept, once fringe, is now virtually orthodoxy in liberal media and entertainment. The term toxic masculinity itself might not be spoken within these films as dialogue, but its ethos undergirds them. In press junkets and interviews, creatives frequently talk about examining or deconstructing toxic masculinity through their work. There's another movie that I think, I know we tried to talk about it before, but Allison didn't watch it. But it was a folk horror movie called Men, and it was basically this. It presented a world, this scary world this woman went to, where all the men looked like the same guy, and they all had like a kind of, they
I
were
did
all
watch it.
based in one of the traits. Did you watch it?
Yep. It was
Okay.
It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was bizarre, and it was trying to be. I think it was up its own ass a lot, but the takeaway was, you had all these men in this little town in England, in the countryside, and they were all played by the same actor, and he was doing different accents and stuff, like showing his range, I guess you could say. But all the characters he played were like a different facet of masculinity, and it was all bad. Like they were dismissing, there were dismissive cops that were like, "Oh, what were you wearing?" It was all of the feminists. It was like the check boxes, there was like the predatory priest, there was the violent boy, like it, and and there were no good men in the movie at all, like none. Even her ex-boyfriend was a terrible piece of shit. And it was obviously just doing this. It was like something that I think was probably made so that it could be shown in schools. That's what I think, like for some film class. So then they could like talk about essentially not art because it was not good in my opinion, but rather the concepts. But I'm just saying, like, this is just another example of how you can, they put all these toxic masculinity themes in movies without actually saying the term toxic masculinity, because you don't have to, because to them it's just masculinity anyway. So they're just showing men as they see them. So because everyone in Hollywood has daddy issues, apparently. The movie's called Men. Yeah, it's just called Men. I forget the horror director, but he has, I think it's Garland, Alex Garland, I think made it. But anyway, okay. So let's see. In press junkets and interviews, creatives frequently talk about examining or deconstructing toxic masculinity through their work. That's why I brought up Men. For many, it's seen as a necessary re-education of the audience, but others argue it has become a blunt instrument, pathologizing all things male. Hey, remember Felt? That one, that's another one. It was essentially about a serial killer, a woman serial killer, but it was trying to justify what she does.
If you ever need to like jumpstart a puke, just watch Felt.
FELT. It's
like
terrible.
You got really your stomach's really like burning and in pain, and you want it over with. Just watch Felt. It is the essence of nausea.
Yep. Hey, I got a super chow.
Cool.
It's a 2-parter though. It's 50 and 5.
Oh,
but the fundraiser's not up, so I don't know where the 50 went.
Probably. I put the ability to put like a tip in on the tip.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might have gone in there. I could take a look, but
all right. Well, Gary Thomas, thank you so much, Gary, gives us 50 and 5 and says, speaking of male representation in media, I watched Ordinary People starring Donald Sutherland and Mary Tyler Moore yesterday. That movie would never be allowed to be made today because it shows men being more emotionally mature than women in dealing with tragedy. Ordinary People. Is that an old movie? It's Mary Tyler Moore. It's got to be old.
I wonder if that might have been an accident, because it looks like it's 2 super chows, unless he was really eager to do a specifically that amount. I don't know. So hopefully it wasn't an accident. Again, thank you for that amount. Yeah.
Gary, thank you.
Gary, thank you, Gary. Gary the snail.
Oh, hi, Gary. All right. Anyway, okay. So for many, it's seen as a necessary re-education of the audience, but others argue that it's become a blunt instrument, pathologizing all things male. For conservatives, the concept of toxic masculinity knocks down the virtues and ways of life they hold dear: strength, honor, duty, and bravery, one observer writes, noting how this rhetoric essentially recasts positive male attributes as negatives. I would just say that I don't think it's a conservative thing to just want men to be normal. And I hate that they associate it with that. Maybe that's because that's what it sounds like these days. But I don't think that is inherently, unless
position.
The paradigm you're making is that you're either if you're okay with being a man, like your identity as a man is okay as it is, regardless of what that looks like. If that is considered to be conservative, then I guess that's what it is. But like, I wouldn't want to die on that hill. Like, I don't think that's good. That's like you're alienating half of the population by saying, I don't know, by describing it that way. But I have cause to believe that is actually the goal. So
no, it's at this point it is like it's at this point masculinity is everything that the left isn't, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Or everything the left wants to scapegoat. It all comes down to masculinity. If you look at the Smithsonian's list of white behaviors, they're all basically masculine behaviors.
Yep.
Because
the Smithsonian list on what whiteness is, it's all masculine stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Well, that's what I've been saying too, by the way, for a long time with regards to all this, these other kinds of conversations happening around different identity groups. And I'm like, this is all just men and women, though. Like, at the end of the day, all the other stuff doesn't really matter. But anyway, all right. Indeed, with that, when every traditionally masculine trait is viewed with suspicion, culture edges towards implying that masculinity itself is a disease. That's we're way past that though. But nowhere was this cultural clash more evident than in the reaction to a certain shaving razor commercial in 2019. Gillette's now famous advertisement, launched in the heat of hashtag #MeToo, directly invoked the phrase toxic masculinity and urged men to be better, to intervene against harassment, to shed the old boys will be boys excuses. Also, it produced a lot of memes. A lot of memes came out of that. The ad showed scenes of bullying, catcalling, and boardroom sexism, asking pointedly, is this the best a man can get? A twist on the company's classic slogan. The backlash was immediate and ferocious. Many men and some women blasted the ad as an unfair generalization that implied most men were sexual harassers or violent thugs and was merely virtue signaling corporate pandering. Prominent and conservative actor James Woods accused Gillette of jumping on the Men Are Horrible campaign. Do you want to say anything right now, or is that? Oh, Allison's not here right now. Okay, I looked away for a second.
I can hear you. I'm here. I just I'm
Okay.
trying to fix this damn light that's blowing out the background and causing all of these like it changes how the light balances so that it makes my face dimmer, and so the only way I have lost the click. So here are your technical difficulties, everyone. I've lost the clicker to that light, so it's blowing out the background. It's now beaming on Grogu. And I have to get rid of it, or my husband is actually going to get rid of it. So that's going to happen momentarily. So I'm just dealing with that right now. So I am here. I am listening to you, Brian. I'm just distracted. Yes. Okay, but continue.
All right. Anyway, on YouTube, the commercial's dislikes quickly far outnumbered likes. The Gillette saga is instructive. It revealed how polarized the concept of toxic masculinity had become. To one side, it was a long overdue call for accountability. To the other, it felt like an all-out attack on male identity. I don't think that it was polarized if Gillette ended up having to retract it. I think that you guys were just wrong about that. Like, I don't know, like this whole idea of like, man, this has people divided. It's like, no, you're wrong. And some people stupidly agreed with you, but that means that you're still wrong. So that's basically what the result is. It's not, oh my God, opinions, they're just the same, but they just happen to be opposite. No, there's a correct answer and there's an incorrect answer, and you guys have chosen the incorrect answer. Or at least the people that you're talking about that think that this is a long overdue call for accountability, like that's never happened before. Do you remember in the Gillette commercial, there was a clip of, and this is the one that got memed the most, of an attractive woman walking down the street and a white dude that noticed her and wanted to talk to her, and his black friend stepped in, or maybe it was some random black guy that was there, and basically put his hand on his chest and said, no, man, it's not cool, not cool. He literally says, not cool, not cool, which, by the way, is in, and the reason I'm bringing it up is it is in no way harassment. Like, all he wanted to do was talk to her, nothing else. She was in public. She was walking down the street looking good, skin glistening, titties bouncing. Like that one girl in the other video that was like, why isn't anybody approaching me anymore? And he was going to do it. Nobody on there looked creepy or unattractive or anything. And his friend's just like, no, that's not cool. And that's supposed to be an example of toxic masculinity. Approaching women in public. That's it. That's all it was. So just bear that in mind. That was how normalized it was as a concept. You know what it came from? I think, do you remember that viral video? That was one of the early viral videos of a woman walking around New York City for 10 hours. And it was like a compilation of every time she got catcalled or somebody said something to her. And it turned out, I think it produced about, I want to say like 2 minutes of content that they ended up putting out. I think that was what the inspiration was. Yeah. So
okay, I've solved the issue with the lighting.
All right, well, that's good. I'm glad. All right.
Okay.
Hollywood's current crop of films decidedly take the former stance. They presume toxic masculinity is real and pernicious, and they set out to critique or lampoon it. The result, intentionally or not, is that a lot of traditional male behavior now shows up on screen coded as toxic. Stoic, emotionally distant father figure, likely he'll be portrayed as failing his family. And then they give an example. The Banshees of Inisherin and The Whale in recent years both depict lonely, taciturn men whose inability to communicate leads to personal tragedy. I've never seen those movies. I think The Whale is the one with Brendan Fraser, and he's like a really fat guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought his character was gay though. I thought he was
Yep.
like fat and gay.
Well,
So
gay is the straight men of
yeah,
gay
the
people.
gay men are the straight white people of gay people. So anyway, and the Banshees of Inisherin, I think, was one I was kind of interested in because it has I don't remember. It was I think it's an Irish thing. But anyway, a man who loves flirting or womanizing, he's probably going to be either a clown like the Kens in Barbie or a villain, the charming date rapist of promising young woman. Even righteous anger or physical courage in a man, traits that for decades were the backbone of hero archetypes, are now often shown as double-edged or outright dangerous. This isn't to say, and let me go back to that real quick. Righteous anger or physical courage, they are often used in hero stereotype or hero archetypes, but they're also, I think, something that like we need men to have. Like if we want to, like who's going to protect you from danger if not someone who has, a sense of physical courage in them or righteous anger that's been encouraged. Like what? Okay, let's back up for a second. We have discouraged this trait in men so much that they are, and I don't even disagree with them doing this, but they're literally not stepping in when women are in trouble. Because what happens when they do? Look at Daniel Penny, the guy who intervened when a homeless guy was freaking out on the train, threatening to kill people, and Daniel Penny stepped in, and he got arrested for his trouble. So, like again, this is why men aren't stepping in, and it's something that we just don't encourage because we do consider it to be toxic, or at least our media is trying to say that. So yeah, they're trying. It is on purpose. Anyway.
Yep.
I'm
back. I'm good.
Okay.
I've resolved all the things.
Okay. All right. This isn't to say there are no positive male characters anymore. But in the films drawing the most buzz, those characters tend to be supporting players or deliberately non-traditional men. For example, Ken in Barbie only learns sympathy once he breaks down in tears and admits his insecurities, essentially when he relinquishes the performative alpha male mask. I don't want to talk about Barbie anymore. It's a remarkable cultural pivot. We've gone from James Bond seducing women and saving the day with nary a thought to his macho antics to a landscape where a character
What's
like
wrong
Bond.
with that?
Huh?
The assumption here is that there's a backlash because James Bond. And also, you guys, like, this is flanderizing James Bond. You know that in Goldfinger, his only weapon was his sexuality. Because he had to basically seduce Pussy Galore to his side to get anything done in that movie. Right. So he was actually playing what today we would consider a more feminine role, which is the role of seducer or seductress.
Yeah, and that's actually not a unique thing for even stuff before that, where you have the hero, the protagonist, in a situation where he has to use his sexuality to charm a woman who is his enemy to like help him. And this is a common thing that they have done in a lot of the pulp stories, like Flash Gordon. Do you remember Flash Gordon? You ever see that one with the Queen soundtrack? Flash has to escape prison. He's like being captured, or he's going to be executed by Ming the Merciless, and it is Ming's daughter, Princess Aura, that saves him because she wants him. She desires him sexually, but it's only because of that he was basically powerless. Like it wasn't like it wasn't like he was trying to charm her, because he wasn't. He actually was interested in Dale. But yeah, like it's not uncommon that you would find these stories where, you know, a man, either his charm or his looks or his sexuality manages to essentially gain him favor with a woman who eventually turns to his side. And it's not
Yeah.
even about like just banging them, because like I said, Flash didn't bang her. He didn't get Princess Aura.
Mm.
Um
Yeah, and
which
this
is
is
a
like,
shame because she was badass. That was a hot chick.
okay, but
Ornella Muti, look her up. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, I mean, it's like the men using their sexuality in a pro-social way. And I mean, and there's also plenty of the reverse in films too. Of course,
Yeah.
that's disappeared in current cinema. And they ignore it. They ignore that this was something that James Bond did in at least one of his escapades. And also, what's wrong with escapist fiction for men? What's wrong with that? Right? What's wrong? And also, why is it seen as counter to reality? James Bond is canonically a very attractive man and very suave, and has all this kind of gadgets that would suggest some kind of, access to wealth, or at least resources. And
Yeah.
as we know, these are the kinds of men that women like. So it's accurate to reality, right? It's not even denying what women like in men. Okay, so you can't even say that, oh, James Bond is a schlub and it's just a wish fulfillment fantasy for schlubby males. That's not even, you can't even say that. It's entirely consistent with what observable reality is in regards to men like James Bond and how well they do in the dating market today. Right? That's patently observable. So what is your complaint? This guy, and I'm not even talking to feminists. I'm talking to this man. James Bond did not need a backlash.
No, there's
James
nothing wrong with
did not need a backlash. The male characters from the 50s and the 40s did not need a backlash. Okay? And if you actually watch those films, the female characters are better rendered. And they better command their space than they do now. I remember watching back to back some Agatha Christie movies from like the 50s, and then again in the noughties, or whatever we're calling this current era of trash. And the women in the Agatha Christie movies from the 50s absolutely commanded the space that they were in. They were characters. Every single one of them had a verifiable character and was riveting on the screen. And I remember watching this, like this, it was a, I don't recall the exact title, but they were on an island. Someone had been murdered, and I think it was a female amateur sleuth who was trying to figure it all out. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Or no, it might have been Poirot. One of those two. And every single woman in that show was a force. Like, she was memorable. She had amazing lines, charismatic. And they were all, and a lot of them were like fighting. So it was this fascinating thing going on. And it was riveting. And then we watched, probably not a good idea, we watched a remake of one of, I think, Agatha Christie's less impressive stories from a few years ago from today, so in the 20s. And I remember there was one scene. First of all, it had a lot of gross out, which I guess is a thing now. But then there was one scene where, I kid you not, 4 women were quailing in terror in rapid succession. And every time there was a man and a woman on the screen, the woman was like, like, and I'm like, it's such a stark change. Like the 50s, a woman comes into the room and she's like, I've arrived, and there's this physical there's even like this kind of deference that these women in the 50s got physically that I don't know if women get anymore. And they would command the room with their wit.
Like when a woman walked in, all the men would stand up, or
they
then take their hats
commanded the
off or
room.
something.
They
Yeah.
commanded the room with their wit and charisma. And then we go to the 2000s, 20s, and everyone's like, a man. I'm like, good Lord. Like, this is a regression. We go from female characters who are fascinating to female characters who are terrified. They just catch a whiff of a man and they're like, and they just melt into a puddle of nothing. Or alternatively, they turn into these girl bosses who just kick the shit out of every man in the room, absolutely absurdly, because this is just total bullshit. Like, it's believable for a woman to be charismatic. It's believable for her to have a sharp wit. It's believable. That stuff is believable. A 90-pound woman kicking a man in the face is not believable. Unless he's paid her to do it. And it's part of some kind of scene. But this stuff is, it's just, anyway, just to get back to it, there was nothing wrong with cinema in the 50s. There's nothing wrong with cinema in the 40s, the 20s, the 30s. Go watch it. There was nothing wrong with how women were depicted. Nothing. I just recently watched something called Cat People from the 1942. And again, women
Is
had...
that a horror movie? I feel like I know that one.
It is sort of, it's a thrill. It's too slow. It's not really as scary as a horror movie. It's more like a thriller. But the women in the show, again, command, physically, like, their space. But it's interesting because the men are depicted in a different way. The man who, basically the story is that he marries a werecat. Okay, spoilers, guys, for something.
Yeah.
And she can't actually consummate with him because if she does, she's terrified that she'll kill him. And he's actually incredibly patient with her. But while he's going through this, he has a female friend, work colleague, who's sort of supporting him through this and trying to help him. And he starts to grow closer to her because his wife is becoming really scary. I don't know how else to describe it. And it comes through. And the thing is, the way he's depicted as genuine, he's depicted as warm and loving, and also terrified by some of the crap that's going on. But at the same time, as he steps up to actually protect his female friend, work colleague, and it's really interesting to see how the relationships between men and women have evolved since then. And there's no like, the women in the show are not dismissed as characters. Neither the werecat nor the female colleague who's a friend, who eventually they, I guess, develop a romantic attachment. Not before he gets his relationship annulled or his marriage annulled. But they develop a romantic attachment. And neither of the women in this, because it's a very small story. Actually, none of the women, even the cleaning lady, has more character and charisma and presence, and the waitress and the woman at the receptionist, all of which who had jobs, and the werecat also had a job and had her own apartment. What a surprise, considering she wasn't allowed to have a bank account, supposedly, according to feminists. Yeah, go watch these old movies to find out how feminists are actually full of shit. But anyway, every single female character in that movie was fascinating, had her moment to shine. And she shone, and she was charismatic. She commanded a space. She's witty. Something was cool about her. And you watch today, and you either have the victims of patriarchy or the smashers of patriarchy, and that's it for women. Or the sinister the sinister conservative woman. That's it. Those are your three archetypes of womanhood today.
Your Stepford wife, or you have your patriarchy smasher or your patriarchy victim. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the smoking cleaning lady, who's just like this chain smoking cleaning lady watching all these antics, she was hilarious in a way. The woman in behind the reception of the colleague woman's apartment building. Oh, she also had her own apartment, by the way, in the 40s. Amazing, huh? She had like this sort of brassy Bostonian accent, and she was amusing too. So like every single female character was fun and cool. And now we have this in the modern era. We have Mary Sue, We have Boss Babe, who all she needs to learn is that she's enough. We have the sinister conservative woman as a potential villain, right? Who doesn't realize how oppressed she is, but perpetuates oppression anyway. And then we have the put upon traditional woman whose love for a man is going to be her greatest weakness. Those are our archetypes today, guys, or stereotypes today, guys. Isn't it fun? Isn't media engrossing? Okay.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, Peter Houston says, in It's a Wonderful Life, lots of women seem to have bank accounts. Yes.
Yeah. Weird.
It's weird, huh? It's
Yeah.
almost like feminism is telling you a line of bullshit.
Almost.
Almost.
All right. It's a remarkable cultural pivot. We've gone from James Bond seducing women and saving the day with nary a thought to his macho antics to a landscape where a character like Bond is presented as a problematic relic or subverted as an object of critique. In essence, masculinity itself has been put on trial in our movies, yes. And the verdict from the creative class, more often than not, is guilty as charged. Gender politics and the culture war on masculinity. This cinematic trend doesn't exist in a vacuum. It mirrors and feeds into a wider socio-political context. In American culture especially, gender has become intensely politicized terrain in recent years, with masculinity often in the crosshairs. I would add, though, I know they're saying American culture especially, but I don't know, man. The UK is catching up if they're not like surpassing it, because a lot of the films that we're talking about are like they're basically UK movies on Hollywood budgets, and also like they're actually putting some of this content into school curricula, like adolescence, which is in fact, a part of this whole machine. So anyway, but yeah, it's basically all over well, I wouldn't even say just the West, it's all over the world. Like there was a video game that came out from Japan recently, Silent Hill F, and apparently the F stands for feminism, because it is like has nothing to do with the franchise historically of Silent Hill. It was like a feminist movie that they decided they needed to change the title of because they thought if they didn't have the word Silent Hill in it somewhere, it wouldn't sell. But it was essentially about a girl with daddy issues, and like it's a feminist video game. Like, and it's just Japanese. Like this is not American. So, but anyway, so yeah, no, it's all over the world. The war on men that some commentators decry is in large part a reaction to the kind of messaging Hollywood is now amplifying, messaging that aligns closely with progressive, feminist-informed politics. Indeed, the U.S. Democratic Party's messaging and left-leaning media in the Trump and post-Trump years have frequently portrayed traditional masculinity as something suspect or needing reform. Meanwhile, conservatives have seized on this to rally men to their side, arguing that the left is demonizing half the population. All right, I don't like this language about conservatives seizing on it. If you're just treating men like normal, that's not seizing on it. That's just not attacking them. And it's not like conservatives don't have their own way of attacking men too. It's just more of the old-fashioned way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that it might be the more of the old-fashioned way of doing it, but also a lot of conservatives are failing in actually holding women accountable to the old-fashioned expectations. And I would even say that I'm not even sure if a lot of conservatives realize that what they considered old-fashioned expectations is a radical departure from what was expected of men and women constructed by Hollywood. There was always an expectation that women provide for their families, that women not be just units of consumption, offloading all of their work to automation. Right. So that was never a traditional role for women. Go look at Proverbs 31 and ask yourself what kind of woman that describes. And so I would say that as you have said, a lot of what we call conservative now is also entrenched in very modern notions of male and female, informed by feminism.
Yeah, it's feminism still. It's
Yeah.
just old. It's just feminism from like 20 years ago. That's all.
Yeah. And
But
like, again, just if you want to try, just if you want to see how actually intelligent the foundational beliefs of feminism are, just ask people when they bring this stuff up. Just say, do you really believe that men oppress women? And watch them stutter, because it is going to force this nonsense that we've all decided that we believe in conflict with everybody's common sense. Like, we can avoid it if we don't actually point it out, right? We can all believe it if we don't actually point it out. But the instant you point it out and you say, do you actually believe that men oppress women? You will get people stuttering. I can even get feminists stuttering over that one. I've even gotten it so that feminists won't say yes to that because they know it's absurd. And everybody knows it's absurd. The only reason it continues is because nobody says, do you honestly believe that? Do you? As you are trying to appeal to the very men who you say hate women absolutely and would never, ever, ever care, and socialize each other to hate women. Right? Not just, they don't just hate women, they go out of their way to teach it to each other. Right? You think that you're going to appeal to people like that? And of course they'll use like, oh, black people appeal to white. No, black people didn't appeal to white people. They appealed to a culturally distinct subset of white people against a different set of white people. They never appealed directly to the people who were enslaving them or the ones who wanted to march them back to Africa without a boat. They appealed to the Northerners with a completely different economy and a completely different culture, right? That's how it worked. No one in the history of anyone has ever appealed directly to the people oppressing them. They've always appealed to a third party that had an interest, an invested interest in the destruction of the power of their oppressors. That's the way it works. So where's the third party that women appeal to when they talk about men oppressing them? Where's the third party? The answer is men, which means that they don't oppress women. Okay.
all right. I got another super chow from Gary Thomas, who gives us 5 and says, the extra $50 was an accident, but it's fine. I can afford the extra expense this week. Also, as an Agatha Christie fan, I think the old movie adaptation Allison is speaking of might be Evil Under the Sun.
Yeah, it might be Evil Under the Sun. But it was really, and also the reveal of the female, like, it was a woman who did the murder, and her reveal was cool too, because she had actually pretended to be this meek, mousy woman who was under the thumb of the guy. And in order to solve the murder, I think it was Poirot, he had to figure out that that was a complete fiction and that she was actually also sort of a diva, like the woman who was originally suspect. Actually, no, the woman who ended up getting killed, who was not a very sympathetic murder victim, but nevertheless, she was a fascinating character. Okay, yeah, no, but it was like what I took, my takeaway was every single woman had brought something to the screen in that movie, and also in Cat People. Every single one of them brought something to the screen. Can you say that about women today in film?
I mean, I don't think it's. I think there's an attempt to do that, but I don't think it
yeah,
works.
but it's always those four characters, and there's nothing really unique about any of them.
No,
they're all
it's its own kind of formula.
They're all femininity in relation to feminism. It's the relation to the feminist formula of reality, and how women are only basically four stereotypes, and that's it. And none of them have their own unique character, their own unique twist, their wit, their secrets, none. It's nothing like that. It's all just bland, increasingly bland crap.
Yep.
And they're trying to make up for it for increasing the violence against men, increasing the condemnation of men, but they can't, because the stories are getting, like, even this article says the stories are getting monotonous and bland because it's all the same. And Yeah, that's going to be the future, ladies. I mean, if there's any women listening, that's your future. You get to watch this cinema with its 4 stereotypes about women, and men are evil, and that's it. These black and white feminist chick tracks are our future. You get to have your spot in the intersectional ziggurat, but you are going to be bored to tears for the rest of your life. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get that Clockwork Orange theme.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna get for our movies. Okay. The numbers suggest a growing gender divide in political affiliation. Young men have been veering rightward, while young women have trended even more to the left, creating a stark polarization. As of 2020, fewer than 4% of U.S. marriages were between one Republican and one Democrat. Americans are increasingly even choosing romantic partners along political lines. I mean, it's your values though. Like I think that makes sense. And men have only slightly, maybe a little bit moved to the right. It's actually kind of like part of a pattern of them, like slightly moving up left and right a little by little. Women have gone off the rails completely. So it's not like, oh, they split up like this. It's more like men went like this and women went like this. So, but anyway, this hints at a deeper cultural shift. Many young women identify with feminism and social liberalism, whereas a lot of young men feeling attacked or alienated by the rhetoric are gravitating to more conservative or constrained spaces. Contrarian spaces. In an era when the personal is political, as the saying goes, one stance on masculinity has practically become a litmus test. Progressives often spotlight toxic masculinity as a societal ill, a problem to be addressed through education, corporate initiatives, and yes, representation in media. Liberal cultural outlets like the New York Times and the Atlantic have run a slew of pieces on the problem with men in modern dating, education, and work, implying that men need to change or face being left behind. That there's on The Guardian, which is one of my favorite websites. There's literally a column there called The Week in Patriarchy, where every week they put an article out talking about how women are victims of something new or men are doing something bad again. And it's a hammer looking for a nail. That's what all of our media is. It's a hammer looking for a nail, and it always finds one in men as being the problem or part of the problem or whatever. And it's not hard to conflate men with any other group that is the enemy. That's why, it gets swapped to whiteness or heteronormativity or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Political parties, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to, like, how can we use our hatred of men to attack an idea? And that's what they do. And they always find a way. Every time they want to write something, they do. So all right. Anyway, one viral New York Times essay in 2025 described a noticeable absence of men in public life and asking plaintively, "Men, where have you gone?" Another introduced readers to the term heterofatalism. Hey, we talked about that one. The bleak notion that straight relationships are doomed by men's inadequacies, as single women vent about the dearth of good men willing to commit or even date earnestly. This media drumbeat paints a picture of masculinity in crisis, but crucially, it often frames it as a crisis men themselves have caused by not adapting to modern norms. In reality, though, many men are feeling unfairly blamed for crimes. What?
I think
Yeah,
that
they
is
are
adapting.
adapting.
That is
Yeah.
adapting. Like, the thing is that honestly, this society, it disincentivizes men's commitment to women and incentivizes men maintaining a distance from women in order to protect themselves and their assets. And like that is an adaptation to the current situation for men. Now, if you do something like, and it's not even assets, actually, I think it was Kentucky that put in shared parenting, and the rate of divorce dropped like a rock. So you don't even necessarily have to change how assets are split and divorce. You just have to change the presumption of how the children's time is going to be split. And if you change that, divorce disappears. And then men will once again have more reason to invest in their families and invest in women. But it's like, and then also men don't want to necessarily invest financially or commit to women who don't want to have families. Like this isn't an adaptation to what women are doing. What they mean is that men haven't changed to tolerate this situation and changed to become whatever it is women expect from them. Right? That's what they're saying. Because I'm pretty sure the expectations for women in relationship have only decreased and declined in the last 75 years. The expectations for men have increased or stayed the same. So how they can say, well, men haven't adapted to this situation. You're right. Well, men haven't adapted to the fact that they're getting a worse and worse and worse deal. Well, yes, they have. They've adapted by walking away from it. Like, I guess it's going to be time for women to adapt to the fact that the vast majority of them will have to work till they die. There's not even going to be retirement anymore. So you think that you're going to be a little old lady being visited by your grandchildren? Well, no grandchildren. No, you are going to be working until you die, ladies. That's going to be your life.
Yep.
Right.
All right. So in reality, many men feeling unfairly blamed for crimes they did not commit have chosen to check out of dating in a society they increasingly perceive as hostile towards them. On the other side of the aisle, conservative politicians and pundits have leaned into defending traditional masculinity, accusing the left and Hollywood of collectively waging a war on men. Well, it's not.
Okay,
No, they're doing it. Like you don't have to like make the argument. You can just look at it.
You
And
are
just,
making the argument. Like this guy is like, well, look, I'm here out on the front lines of the war, and I'm watching Hollywood bomb the nation of the penis people, and I can see the craters and the smoke and the ruin and the bodies. But I wouldn't call this a war.
Yeah, exactly.
You are describing a war. Like you are describing the criminalization, the demonization, the mocking and minimization of masculinity, right? The attempt to push it out of society. And then yet the moment of truth, you're like, but I wouldn't call it a war. That's the conservative. Sir, don't be absurd. Like, this is where I'm getting from. Like nobody wants to admit the truth, because once they admit the truth, then they have to deal with reality. This is an example of somebody who's like, well, I'm observing all of this stuff, but I refuse to acknowledge what is actually happening. Why?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know. All right. On the other side of the aisle, I already read that part. They see the constant critiques in ads, op-eds, Oscar-winning films as an unfair generalization at best, and at worst, an attempt to erase what they view as healthy masculine virtues. The outrage over the Gillette ad was one flashpoint. Another is the popularity of figures like psychologist Jordan Peterson and populist senators like Josh Hawley, who openly talk about a masculinity crisis, albeit their concern is that men are being emasculated by a feminist liberal culture.
What? Okay, so you describe all of this, and then you describe the other side responding to it. Do you consider this to be acceptable? Like that, all you're doing is saying that this side is saying, well, that's not right. The feminists have stabbed masculinity, and the other side's like, yeah, that's not right. And you're like, oh, whoa, how dare?
No, yeah. Now it's time to fret.
Now it's time to
It's not about how we've been demonizing men for so long. Is that there are people who I don't like that are actually noticing and saying something, and it's actually having an effect.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's so confused because the article is saying, well, it looks like masculinity is being stabbed. And Jordan Peterson says masculinity is being stabbed. And that's, yes, he's observing the reality that you're observing. And he's saying it is happening. And you are also saying it is happening. What is the problem?
Yeah, exactly.
You're both on the side of saying that this is happening. God damn.
All right, Gary Thomas gave another $5 super chow. Thank you, Gary, and says, while it's true in most countries men have stayed where they are while women have gone further to the left, the only exception is South Korea, where men are actively trending more conservative, which I think might have to do with the mandatory military service. They go from a mostly male meritocracy atmosphere to re-entering the wider gynocentric society of South Korea.
Yep.
But also South Korea's got a real serious feminism problem. Like it's bad there. It's like India bad. So and yeah, so like the India has a very vocal men's rights population or network there, and South Korea does as well. I think it's growing. I don't know if they're because I had a South Korean guy who told me, I mean, he's not able to come on the show because of the time zones and his work schedule, but he has talked about the sort of like push, I guess, for men's issues there. But their issues are slightly different than ours, but yeah. But anyway, thank you, Gary, for that. Okay, let me see. Where was I? Hawley, for instance, gave a speech in late 2021 arguing that America's men are in decline because of the left's attempt to deconstruct males and has urged a return to traditional male virtues of strength and providership. I watched his speech, and that's a little bit unfair because he's also talked about the problems that men face. So it's not just like a man up speech. I remember it because I watched it and I was actually pretty impressed. He was obviously either he sat down with or he read The Boy Crisis. I think he actually brought it up too, which is Dr. Warren Farrell's book. A lot of like Warren Farrell originally was marketing this to the Dems because he's a Democrat, he was a lifelong Democrat, and they wouldn't listen to him, or they would pay him lip service. I remember Andrew Yang saying, "Oh yeah, we'll look into it," but never did. So he basically said, "Well, we got to do something." So he said, "I'll talk to Republicans." And I think that he talked with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. This is when Tucker still worked there. He talked with Larry Elder, and he's talked with a couple of other guys as well. So I think that Josh Hawley either spoke to Warren Farrell or actually read his book, because I remember in his speech he brought up a number of things that were in that book, The Boy Crisis. And if you haven't checked that one out, you definitely should, because it's like, I think that, well, I've been saying on this channel forever, the fatherlessness is like the biggest issue because of what it is producing in terms of the boys and girls, for that matter, when there isn't a father in the home. And I think that that's like one of the primary things that has to be fixed. Although, you could, what?
No, finish your thought. I want to speak after you're done.
I was just gonna say like that's what I'm saying, but like in order to do that, we have to fix the gap between men and women. So, but go ahead.
Okay, well, can I throw my own 2 cents in the ring on what's going on? I want to return to the boys club and masculine values, because I want to return to reading female authors like this, right? CJ Sherrill, Down Below Station, very good book. And what I've noticed is that we've gone from female authors like this, to Morning Glory Milking Farm, with a female dominance in publishing. And I want the return of patriarchy.
You don't want the Minotaur rape fantasy?
No, it's not rape.
No?
It's
You don't
just
want
Minotaur
that? Okay.
meat fantasy. It's no rape.
Whatever it is.
Didn't get that degenerate.
It's literally chattel.
Literally chattel. Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to the excellence I saw with women in the past, when it was so-called patriarchy, when we did the toxic masculinity thing. Because what I'm seeing now is incredibly boring, stupid writing from women, right? That's pornographic. Its only merit is pornographic. So no more CJ Sherrills, no more Down Below Station. And she was putting in place a lot of the tropes for later science fiction. No more Anne McCaffrey, no more Joan D. Vinge, no more Ursula Le Guin, none of that. Nope. Now we're getting Morning Glory Milking Farm. I'd like to go back to when toxic masculinity expected women to bring their A game, and they did. right? They did as actresses, as script writers, as directors, as authors, as artists. They brought their freaking gay game. I want to go back to female excellence as opposed to whatever this lukewarm pre-puke is. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Continuing on. Right-wing media often mocks or lambasts Hollywood productions that it perceives as emasculating men or unduly elevating women at men's expense. The discourse around the Barbie movie on social media was a prime example, with some conservative commentators calling it anti-man propaganda for its satirical jabs at the patriarchy. So now it's satire when you were just saying, like, you're this guy you got to get your story straight, my friend, because either Barbie is satire that's like light and witty and it's just taking jabs, or it's seriously anti-male. And I think it's seriously anti-male. And you said it was earlier in this article, and now you're backtracking on that.
Exactly.
You're soft pedaling.
I think this is about taking the energy out of the room for this subject more than anything. Because they're trying to both sides this, except only one side is blanket attacking the other. Not even the red pillars think that femininity is a bad thing that should be eradicated. Like, think about that. They don't. They don't think that femininity is something that should be removed from society, maybe from certain parts of society where it's become a manifest danger, but not entirely. But yet this whole toxic masculinity narrative is essentially, let's get rid of society. Let's get rid of masculinity from society. Okay, well, we've been doing that for decades now. How's that looking? How's society looking? Huh? How's your entertainment looking? How's animation looking? How are books and movies looking? How's the economy looking? We've declared war on masculinity. And before that, we embraced this ridiculous notion that men oppress women, which led to the war on masculinity. Because, I mean, if men oppress women, what else do you do but war on them? Right? So how's everything looking now, guys? How's it going? How are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Are we ever going to get back to, are we going to end up on, we're going to get to Mars, are we? Are we ever going to get back to the moon? Not looking like we are. Looks like we peaked in the 60s and now we're going backwards. Okay, let's all
right. Tug of war rhetoric filters into the entertainment itself. It's not a coincidence that Barbie included cheeky nods to real-world gender battles. The film knew it would be divisive and leaned into it humorously. Example, having Ken literally discover patriarchy by name. Likewise, Promising Young Woman promoted heated debates between those who saw it as an empowering feminist fantasia and those, some male, some female, who felt it portrayed all men as monsters. Well, okay, so then if you're saying that we're not supposed to care that much, then why did you write this extremely long article? Like, it's almost like you don't really want to actually talk about whether or not this is a problem. What's the point of it? Like, somebody in the special chat's being special, so it is working. And they're like, someone in there named Not Your Friend said, Barbie's a girly toy. Relax, let them have their thing. You don't gotta like feminism, by the way. So like,
feminism.
Yeah, but he corrected himself later after that.
Okay,
said,
all right.
So the thing is that the film, and there are interviews with the director and the writer and Margot Robbie about what they were intending to do. It is not a movie about a toy. The toy thing is pretense for the thing they actually wanted to say. And if you have any kind of media literacy and you watched it, then you would know that it's not a movie about a toy. It's just not. It's about patriarchy. It's about toxic masculinity. It's about feminism. That's what it's about. And the fact that it was an incredibly anti-male film that made over $1 billion, that was watched mostly by women, and all of them went away saying, this speaks to me on a level that nothing ever has, because of that one rant in the movie that is basically like a woman whining about like life being what it is. Well, it's just like what life is. Like it's full of struggles and contradictions. That's not unique to women. That's everybody's experience. suck it up, buttercup. But women thought that it was very important, and they were like, they were breaking up with their boyfriends over it. They were initiating divorces over it. They were calling their relationships with men into question over it. These things don't occur in a vacuum.
I
That's all
don't
I'm
know.
saying. Like,
Yeah,
you can like it or not like it. You can convince me that it isn't what it tried to be, but all I'm looking at is the outcomes of it.
yeah.
And so
Well,
yeah, that's what happened.
I don't think you're going to get anywhere with this individual because I think they're a bit
No,
disingenuous.
I'm saying that. I'm not saying it for that person. I'm saying it for everybody that's watching. I'm saying
Not
that
your friend says war on masculinity. Lol. What? Because women don't want to marry you or have kids when they're 20. Never once did we mention any of those things.
yeah, you're putting words in our mouth for no reason. I get it though. I mean, I could sit here and tell you that I'm married, but it wouldn't make a difference, right? You don't really care
No, and I'm
because you're trying
also
to score
married.
points. So go ahead, continue to waste your time and flail in the chat.
But
When you're ready to actually think about these issues seriously, come back. But for now, you can just chill there and do whatever. So
okay, but here we go. Not your friend. Do you honestly think that men oppress women? Let's see what he has to say, or she. Okay, let's
right.
move on to the article. How much more of this damn article? Like, this is the article that never ends. Or maybe it's because we
Yeah, but
stopped every
also we shouldn't be taking this too seriously, even though this guy wrote like a fucking essay, like a novella. But anyway, so yeah, and then you have Promising Young Woman again, where they're just saying it prompted debates. No, they literally in the movie they present every man as a predator, and the woman gets revenge on them. That you can't say that movie just exists and you're not supposed to take anything away from it. Every story communicates something. Every story, if it's worth anything, you're gonna walk away thinking about some kind of idea or concept. It could be abstract, it could be specific, but nothing doesn't say anything. So Promising Young Woman, I never saw it, but it is a feminist revenge fantasy. So why does it exist? Right? That's the question. But anyway, the cultural backlash against masculinity that our film title references is very much part of a broader culture war, one in which the Democratic leaning camp tends to view the elevation of women and critique of men as progress, and the Republican leaning camp sees it as demonization and folly. After hashtag #MeToo, many Democratic politicians proudly align themselves with the Believe Women mantra and put forward policies to combat toxic masculinity in contexts like campus sexual assault and military training. Republicans, in turn, often scoff at the term toxic masculinity. Some have even introduced resolutions to celebrate National Masculinity Day to honor positive male role models, implicitly pushing back on the notion that masculinity is inherently problematic. Really, a National Masculinity Day. I mean, I don't know if I'm for these kinds of days, but I'm curious about it. November 19th.
The next paragraph is astounding.
All right, let's look at the next paragraph. The result of this political and cultural climate is that young men today received mixed messages at best.
Okay. So the mixed message, the result, apparently the takeaway of this is that men are receiving a mixed message. They are receiving men are bad, masculinity is toxic, and then there is also this other camp that says, no, that is wrong. Okay, let's get into the conclusion of this mixed message that men are receiving.
Okay, you want to keep going?
Yes.
Popular culture, movies, shows, ads, etc., may tell them that their gender is suspect and they need to reform, be more sensitive, less aggressive, relinquish power. No, actually, the third one is the most important thing, I think. Relinquish power. That's what this comes out to. Give me your money. Yeah. At the same time, countervailing voices tell them they are victims of a feminist agenda and that they should hold fast to traditional manhood or risk losing themselves. It's no wonder that many men feel bewildered or embattled. They're hearing both. Step aside, you've had your turn, and stand up, don't let them beat you down. And nowhere is this schizophrenic messaging more evident than in the realm of entertainment and media.
What
No,
are
wait,
you
no.
even? Wait.
Mhm.
What? So this individual is now equating feminist stabbing masculinity with other people saying, "Hey, no, don't do that." Oh, so is this sort of like in the vein of if a kid is bullied in school, that's okay, but if he stands up to his bully, that's a Bannon. Like what the? These are not equivalent statements. Manhood is bad. No, manhood actually has good things. These are not equivalent statements. And recognizing, you just said, you just detailed how men are being marginalized in media. They're being treated with contempt. They're being demonized. They're being criminalized. Criminalized is an essential component of propaganda that frames people in such a way that you can subject them to harm. So it is wartime. Criminalization is basically wartime propaganda, right? We are subjecting men to this, and you have detailed that. And then you are saying, but let's not call it a war, or let us not call it an attack on men. And you're basically saying that the other side, recognizing that this is attack, is equivalent to the side doing the attack.
Yep.
That is insanity. All right? That is freaking insane. And also, it's not conservatives on the whole. It is just people who have been ostracized by the left for this very behavior of targeting men. So everybody's who like, I don't think we should. Shoe on Head is now on the right because she just calls this stuff out, right? She's an alt-right personality now because she simply calls this stuff out. She calls out this behavior towards men. So everybody who is not left, like if you call out, if you notice this, you are now on the right. So article, you may be trying to keep yourself on the left. You are now on the right, or in the center. Nope, you are now on the right because
There's no center.
There is no
no center.
You're right. That's the funny thing about the people who are like, I'm the enlightened centrist. There is no center at this point. And it's not because we're saying there is no center. We are not
because you're not allowed to be on the center. You have to pick their side or you're far right.
You are either on the left, you are either part of their intersectional ziggurat and you know your place within it, or you are far right.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you run afoul of their many arcane rituals related to the intersectional ziggurat and worshiping victimhood, you are on the right. Like that's just the way it works. You're either in the ziggurat or you're an enemy of the state. There is no center. There might be a center once you get past the chasm, with us. Like there might be a center position somewhere on the other side of the chasm away from the intersectional ziggurat, but there ain't no center with them. And this isn't us saying it. This is us telling you they're saying it, which is you seem to have a problem with it, writer of this article. You seem to have a problem with the idea that there isn't an equivalence here. We aren't the extremists for pointing out that there is no center anymore, at least with the ziggurat, with the people of the ziggurat. And you seem to think that you occupy a center between, this is what's funny about this article. They seem to think that they occupy a center between constructing stabbing masculinity. There's a center between stabbing masculinity to death and saying, hey, you're stabbing masculinity to death. That there's some kind of center between those two propositions. Sir, you may get out your electron microscope, but you will never find a center between those two positions.
Yeah, sorry, but pretty binary.
The first 3 stabs are okay, but the fourth one is just one stab too far.
There's like a lot more to this, and we have about less than a half an hour. Do you want to do more of this, or do you? What?
I guess we'll go back to. I mean, that's pretty much the money shot. Or we could go to the final paragraphs.
Look at this. A plea for balance.
Plea for balance. There has, guys.
No.
I know that person. I know fembot is stabbing manbot to death. Surely there is a position, a centrist position between stabbing someone to death and recognizing that they're being stabbed to death. Surely there's centrism. I can find it somewhere in there. So we're not going so far as to recognizing that the stabbing to death is happening, but we're not stabbing them to death.
This is where they lose me.
Yeah,
For
I think
balance.
we should lose anyone with sanity.
Yeah, I mean, again, I knew this was going to go here just based on the way the person who wrote this article framed it from the beginning, which I assume is how they see it as well, which is to say, well, it used to be, like we used to be really bad to women. We used to be really sexist. Men used to be really, cads on film. And now we've overcorrected. We got to get back to balance. But your assumptions, your presuppositions before you even started writing were wrong. So you're going back to something that doesn't exist, and you're taking a lot of assumptions with you. So do you want to do Bryrony or?
Well, let's do the last plea for balance. Let's do it. Let's just.
All right. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Do you have to go right?
I just kind of skimmed it, and I'm like, well, I have Bryrony, but I don't know. I mean, we could do that another day.
Do you have to go right at the hour?
What?
Do you have to go right at the hour?
Yeah, I should, because I got to pick Lindsay up. It's going to take me like a little bit. The thing is, when I go pick her up, the high school on my path is letting out. So it's insanity when I'm driving there because there's all these school buses and whatnot. So that's why if I go closer to,
I just feel like the mother load of insanity is in underneath.
I know.
A plea for balance. If necessary, we can finish Bryrony another day.
Yeah. So a plea for balance. The current narrative, wherein masculinity is so often equated with toxicity or inadequacy, poses the question, what vision of masculinity are we offering for the future?
None. Go away. Leave society. Die.
Yeah, I think that we let men and boys figure that out for themselves. How about that?
Yeah. How about that? No,
how about you don't just be like, we do need to engineer a kind of masculinity. We need to engineer. No, you don't actually. You don't. We already have it. It's called evolution. You guys believe in evolution, right? It's called evolution. We've had it for, since we fell out of the crawled out of the muck, basically, since the fish grew legs or whatever. We've always had it. Like there is something masculinity. It exists in animals too,
Yep.
Anyway.
Well, there's male behaviors, like 100% patent. There is male behaviors in animals and female behaviors. And while human beings it's basically founded on some of the broad strokes, we do have uniquely different masculine and feminine behaviors as human beings, but they're still there. They're still a part of everything. We evolved two different types of psychology for a reason. And I don't know, maybe the gender fluid also, if you could consider like shamanism as sort of like the prehistoric, like the previous version of being gender fluid. Like the witch doctors and the shamans tended to be a little weird. And maybe there's something valid to that.
Yeah.
But whatever, for the most part, male and female, two different psychologies evolved for a reason. Our society has decided that the evolutionary reason for the evolution of male psychology, well, obviously Mother Nature made a huge mistake and we should get rid of it. Well, let's see how that plays out. Well, we don't even have to see anymore. We are watching how that plays out for us.
Yep.
Okay.
So before I go on, I'm just going to say that this statement here, what vision of masculinity are we offering for the future? It presumes that he's basically telling us that it is the job of our cultural institutions to essentially construct our reality. And they're just like, well, we need to construct something different because what we've constructed is bad. But they still are under this really false assumption that it's their job to do this. So anyway, if boys and young men are told everything associated with traditional manhood is bad, do we risk creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of disengagement and resentment? Conversely, if we ignore the very real issues of sexism and abuse that hashtag #MeToo has highlighted, we risk sliding backwards into silence and complicity. There it is. There it is. Can we have some of the feminism? Can we just stab you halfway, but not fully? Can we use paper cuts instead of knives?
No, Brian. They get 6 stabs.
Yeah.
And then everything after that is too much. Unless they can justify that actually men stabbed women 7 times in the past, which they'll be able to do because we can't argue. Like if feminists say no, but men stabbed women 7 times in the past, we have to be like, oh, you're right, because otherwise we're misogynist. So no, it's going to be 7 times. And feminists will say, but men stabbed women 8 times in the past. So it will be 8 times, and then they'll say, well, you can't restrict us to 8 times because men stabbed women 9 times in the past. And then we'll have to stab men 9 times. And then feminists will say, but no, that's restrictive. That's too restrictive. That's patriarchal bargaining. Women got stabbed 10 times in the past. And then on and on and on it goes because nobody can question where feminism is getting their bullshit from. Because feminism has to be correct, right? Like we can't question that, or we're misogynist. We're the dreadest of dread criminals. We're the dread pirate misogyny. like, all right. Conversely, if we ignore the very real issues of sexism and abuse that Me Too has highlighted, we risk stabbing backwards into science. That is feminism saying, but no, women have been stabbed 10 times in the past. Mm-hmm. And there will be a new Me Too. The Me 3 movement, right? The Me Forever movement. And then we will have to stab men 11th time because feminists will have said, no, women were stabbed 11 times in the past. Didn't you know? And it just keeps going and going and going. This article, all it does is tell people to ignore this issue. That's it.
It acknowledges everything and then tries to convince you that it's not happening.
Yeah, it's not. But we can't care about it because women got stabbed 12 times in the past, don't you know? So it's only fair that men get stabbed 12 times. And then, you know what? When we get to the 13th time, there will be an article like this that'll say, but women were stabbed 13 times in the past, don't you know? So it's only fair that men get stabbed a 13th time. And it just on and on and on and on it goes. Because yes, this article has acknowledged all of our positions, has observed everything that we talk about. And we aren't on necessarily the right. No, there are more conservative members. We're just on the position of recognizing that men are being stabbed. And this article has acknowledged all of that. And now it's telling us all why it doesn't matter. Why we need to continue to agree with feminists with whatever they assert, however many times women have been stabbed in the past. Because women have been stabbed 13 times in the past, don't you know? That means we should stab women 13 times just to be fair. And what are you talking about restricting men to being stabbed 13 times? Women have been stabbed 14 times in the past, don't you know? That means we need to stab men 14 times just to be fair. And what do you mean you're restricting us to only stabbing men 14 times? Women have been stabbed 15 times in the past, don't you know? On and on and on and on it goes. And that's why I say everywhere else is the insane asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. The challenge
the insanity would be here.
The challenge for filmmakers, for society, is to find a balance, to continue calling out and rejecting the genuinely toxic behaviors of a very small minority of men without tipping into a blanket vilification of men as a class. But okay, wait. So you just went through and told us all the different ways that the Republicans or the right or the conservatives or basically the non-left who have been saying this is a problem, have they at any point said what we're going to do now is be very hostile and sexist to women? and we're going to ignore bad behavior in men, and we're going to vilify all women. Have they ever said any of that? Has that? And I don't think it has.
Well, I
And
have.
so you're basically trying to balance between two things where only one of these things exists and the other one is something you made up in your head.
I mean,
So I detect backlash, a phobia. That's what I'm getting from this.
yeah. I mean, I have.
Backlash phobia. I fear the right-wing backlash. This is like a thing that I've been a phenomenon that I've seen for years now, and it comes in the form of my right-wing backlash or my male backlash. The male backlash is already happening. It's just men saying you're not worth my time. It's not men like rounding up the women and throwing them in fucking camps. It's not gassing them up in the chambers. It's not gassing, putting them in the gas chambers. They're not going to take them on a train. They're not going to the death camps. There are no MRA fucking, death squads coming for the women. It's literally just men saying, I'm not doing this anymore. And they're just leaving. And that's all they have to do, mind you. It's literally the easiest thing. It's just like, it's what Gamergate 2 is. It's men saying, or it's gamers saying, I'm not buying that product. And that's it. They're not they're not going to bomb the Ubisoft studios. They're just not giving them any more money. And that's all they have to do. And so that you are worried about something that's not going to happen because the consequences are already here. It's men not dating women. That's it. That's it. So all you got to do is stop stabbing them, stop shitting on them, and maybe like celebrate or a good example of masculinity every so often, because that's what men want to see, and then you'll have them back.
You know what? I just realized something. This is hilarious. Basically, what they're saying is if we stop stabbing men, men might stab us. Essentially, that's the justification.
Backlash, right?
That's if we stop stabbing men,
fear the backlash.
Men will start stabbing us because they're so bad.
Yeah.
How about we just stop stabbing men because it's not a nice thing to do?
It's wrong.
It's wrong. And again, like the logic of this person is when feminists say, but men stabbed women 13 times in the past, the logic of this person will be, yes, they did. So it's only fair that men get stabbed 13 times, but don't, like maybe not a 17 times. But then feminists will say, but that is patriarchal bargaining and boys will be boys. Men stab women 17 times. And it's like, it's just this never ending ratchet effect. And this isn't centrism. This is concession. And like, there is no alt-right. There's only the Stop Stabbing Men coalition, which isn't even consistently on the right. Because, sometimes people on the conservative seem to want to get a few stabs in themselves. So it has a lot of conservatives in it because conservatives seem to be the only ones willing to listen. But there are still conservatives that still want to get a few stabs in too. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. All right. And so this is the demarcation. We have the don't stab men, right? And that doesn't include the people that are like, well, maybe it's 18 stabbing men 18 times is bad, but stabbing men 17 times. No, you are definitely not in the don't stab men camp. I am in the, if you're going to stab men, maybe you should have more than bullshit to justify it. In fact, we should really, 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 really have a lot of expectations of evidence before we get to embrace harmful behaviors like condemning men, treating them with contempt, ostracizing them if they want to express masculinity, treating them like demonizing them, criminalizing them, doing all kinds of the behaviors that we do before we target a group for extermination to men. I think we should really sit down for a long time and really think about whether or not we want to do this. Maybe we should have a trial. Men never got the option of having a trial before they were accused of felony misogyny by feminists and the stabbing began. Like they never even got a trial. Maybe we should have started with a trial and had a burden of proof put on feminists to prove things like men oppress women, that men in authority equals women oppressed, which is not the case. These two things do not follow. You actually have to prove that the situation for women is worse than the situation for men when men are in charge. And that you cannot prove because it's not. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. For now, the films on our screens act less like a mirror than a hammer, that striking at masculinity as though it were the root of society's problems. They portray men primarily.
What? Yes. Sorry, Brian, we have to go here. Striking at masculinity as though it were the root of society's problems. Yes, that is the point of feminist conjecture. Like, it's even worse than that. Like, literally, they say that men oppress women, right? Masculinity oppresses femininity. Men use rape and beatings to uphold patriarchy. That is saying that men are the root of society's problems. Right?
Yep.
Okay. That insanity. This is insanity. Don't stab men 19 times. That's not justified. But women were stabbed 19 times in the past, don't you know? So it's perfectly fair for us to stab men 19 times. This is a quisling.
Right.
Okay.
All right, back to this. All right. They portray men primarily as aggressors and women as survivors, rarely pausing to acknowledge that men themselves are also hurting. The real world data is stark. Men make up the majority of the homeless, the majority of suicides, and nearly 90% of murder victims. Yet in culture and media, these realities are muted while the narrative of male guilt is amplified.
Well, not just
Healthier.
that.
What?
Male criminals are overwhelmingly been subject to multiple forms of abuse, plus have genetic factors that lead to low impulse control. That's where they come from. That's where male bad behavior comes from. It doesn't come from masculinity. It comes from experiencing abuse and having a delay or a permanent delay in your development of adult impulse control. That's it. Men don't have guilt for that. Like, the average man has nothing to do with a criminal man. A criminal man has very little to do with a criminal man because he is actually a subject to forces that are sort of outside of his control. That's why he's criminal, right? He's been abused. He has developmental delays, permanent developmental delays. That means he's never attained an adult male level of impulse control. Adult men have really high levels of impulse control. I don't know if you noticed that. Really high. A criminal man lacks that. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yet in culture and media, these realities are muted while the narrative of male guilt is amplified. A healthier cultural conversation would separate bad behavior from manhood itself. It would recognize that condemning violence or abuse is necessary, but that vilifying masculinity as a whole is destructive and misleading. The current zeitgeist leans too heavily on accusation and too little on compassion. So, yes, separating bad behavior from manhood itself. So what you're saying is women can also do bad things and men can also do good things, and we can represent those things culturally. That's a wild concept.
But Brian, women were stabbed 20 times in the past, which means it's only fair to stab men 20 times. So we're going to do that now. Like, the thing is that once you justify this, it never ends because you have no means to stop it. What this article justified the excesses of Me Too. Once you justify it, you're justifying every excess. Like I said, this is just ratchet mentality. The new Me Too will justify the next wave of stabbings. The Me Too after that will justify those waves. It'll just keep going and going and going because this individual does not have the chops to question the premise, right? And the premise is that men are responsible for the bad behavior at all, period. that they should be associated with it at all. That Me Too associating this bad behavior with men was legitimate at all. It wasn't. Okay? Men never stabbed women once, much less 20 times. And as long as you accept the narrative every single time that feminists say, but men stab women 20 times, and you just accept it, all you're doing is enabling it. Right? Me Too was illegitimate. There's no reason to remove due process when it comes to alleged sexual crimes. Right? There's no reason to conduct public lynch mobs when it comes to sexual crimes. Go take it to the police. The end. Go take it to a place that is ruled with due process. Because essentially all this was the creation of social media lynch mobs. And that is no more justified than the lynch mobs of the past. Perhaps it was less violent. It ended in less stabbings and hangings, but it's no more justified. Sexual crimes deserve due process. The end. Me Too was wrong from its inception. That justification for stabbing men was wrong. This man or this individual who read this is just excusing everything while trying to pretend he can find a position between stabbing men and not stabbing men. Right? He can find that position. He can say, well, when feminists can where it's justified by feminism, stabbing men is okay. Well, when do you ever question the justifications feminism give for stabbing men? Well, we can't do that. That would be misogyny. Well, then you're just going to agree with the next time that feminism says men stabbed women 21 times in the past. Therefore, You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, good. I've conveyed information. I'm going to go run around the room now.
All right, I got one more paragraph, and I think that there'll be the end of the article. In the meantime, the war on men in cinema reflects a broader hostility in society, a warning that traditional manhood is no longer celebrated but caricatured. The challenge ahead is not to polarize further by painting one gender as oppressor and the other as victim, but to redefine relationships between the genders in a way that values both men and women. Well, we already value women. That's not even an issue. All right.
What the hell is we already value men are being stabbed. Well, we got to think about making sure we don't live in a world where women are stabbed. What? It's men being stabbed right now. You know why that is? Why he mentions that? Because he is once again going to concede to the feminist argument that women have been stabbed. Now, he's going to try to find the centrist position between stab men and don't stab men. And that centrist position is only stab men when feminists justify it. Well, can you question when feminists justify it? No, that would be misogyny. And, it would, if we question when feminists justify it, that might mean you'll end up justifying stabbing women. So let's just stab men again. It's only going 22 times. What's one more stab? 23 times. Oh, shit. Men are a greasy smear that can't continue to manufacture the things we need to run society. Who knew? Who could have guessed that this ratchet the end result of this ratchet would be the complete destruction of men? That we can't question at any time, because again, he's trying to find that center position between stabbing men and not stabbing men. And of course, the center position is that we just stab men when feminists justify it, but we can never actually question when feminists justify it. So basically, we just stab men till the end of time.
Yep.
Like I said, guys, this is the only place that's sane. Everywhere else is the sane asylum. I should just make like a padded wall on the outside of the Badger Cave and just put a sign, insane asylum. Because everywhere else, I mean, aside from where you live, Brian, your apartment and Hannah's apartment and Karen's, I'm in this like symbolically. Everywhere else is a freaking insane asylum where they're trying to find this center position of well, feminists are justified but in stabbing men, but that so we can stab men. That's the center position.
Yeah.
And this is what it means when a group of people has claimed the center of the chessboard, the identity between men and women. We have to exist within their insanity. We have to. We cannot escape it because we always have to bargain with it like this person is. Now, but feminism says that women were stabbed 22 times in the past. That means that, you know, to be fair, men should be stabbed 22 times, right? But no more. But feminism says that men were stabbed 23 times. Well, I can't question feminism because my center position between stabbing men and don't stabbing men is that men can be stabbed whenever feminists justify it. So I guess we got to stab them 23 times, but no more. Jesus Christ. Fucking insane. Sorry, I took the Lord's name in vain. Insanity. I appeal to you. I appeal to a point of sanity in an insane world. All right. Murder of crows. At this point, I'd like to know what isn't misogyny. Well, obviously, it would be misogyny to question feminists as they stab men 24 times. Right?
Yep.
But no more. 25 times is right out. But women were stabbed 25 times in the past by men. And you can't question that because that would be questioning feminism. That would be ceding the center ground, which is feminism justifies when men should be stabbed. I hope you guys see this fucking nonsense. Like,
No,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know you do, Brian, but like,
oh well, yeah.
Because you understand me, sort of.
Sort of.
So I worry about everybody else. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm talking about stabbing men 25 times. No, YouTube, that's rhetorical and sarcastic. I don't think we should stab men at all, which is why I questioned the very first time that feminists stabbed men by asserting that men oppressed women. I think that is wrong because I don't think the center position between stabbing men and not stabbing men is saying that we stab men whenever feminists justify stabbing men. And I noticed that we can't question when feminists justify stabbing men because that's misogyny. So there's no center position. There's only stabbing men. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten.
All right, we should. Yeah, we should.
I probably got some strike for that. For all the talk of stabbing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sense that Brian needs to get going. feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to send any messages. If you understood what I said, it'd be nice to hear that. So that I know that I'm not squirreling out into the void on my squirrel submarine. We all live on a squirrel submarine. Squirrel submarine.
Is that I don't know. I don't follow that at all.
Yeah.
All right.
It's something I sang a couple episodes ago. You might have forgotten. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and a message with that tip. You can do it at any time after the show is over. So if anything tickled your fancy or angered you immeasurably, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And I don't have the monthly fundraiser up yet, so I can't shout out to that, although I should get that done quickly. I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
Okay, then if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. You should find a link to the article so you can read the whole thing yourself in the description of this video. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Red Chill Cinema, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.